It's a Tuesday episode of Locked On Grizzlies. We're 11 games into the season. Memphis is 7-4 somehow. Are we excited? Are we nervous? A little bit of both. Luke Kennard balled out against the Portland Trail Blazers, and he was conspicuous by his absence from Damichael Cole's solo show on Monday, so I'm going to give him a little bit of crap for that. And I'm sure Damichael and I are going to disagree on the NBA Cup. He likes frivolous things that have no meaning. I prefer substance in my basketball. We'll get into that and more on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Damichael, I feel like the NBA Cup is 100% like a grandpa thing for me. Like it's a grandpa joke.
This is your get off my lawn moment.
Yeah, yeah. We'll talk more about that. But I just kind of during the music break there, I had the realization it's a very old man. Turn down that rap music. Kind of thing that
struggling to adjust to the new things. That's just stuck in your ways. But
that's why people tune into Locked On Grizzlies. They have the cool hip Damichael Cole, and they have the get off my lawn old podcaster that just can't let it go, Joe Mullinax. Welcome to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax. I am the co-host of this here podcast. I've been blogging and podcasting for over a decade now, probably way too long, joined by the much cooler, much more talented Damichael Cole, the commercial appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee.
You got to give yourself some credit, man.
Memphis Grizzlies beat writer, award-winning Memphis Grizzlies beat writer, getting the chance to travel, getting ready to leave on a jet plane, heading to California. A couple of big games coming up for the Memphis Grizzlies. We're going to talk about whether or not we're excited about that, whether we're anxious, nervous, maybe a little bit of both, that and more on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by the good folks over at FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Friendly reminder that your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Grizzlies daily newsletter. One-stop shop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. And start your day with the all-new free Locked On Grizzlies newsletter. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts as proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Become an everydayer. If you haven't already done so, Damichael and I were talking before the show how our numbers keep going up. We really appreciate that. The comments, the subscriptions. It's a wonderful thing. The good news that is Locked On Grizzlies is being spread, and we're so grateful to everybody that checks out our little corner of the internet that we call Locked On Grizzlies. Damichael, you did a great job on your solo show. I don't want to make it sound like I think you did. I mentioned that your Luke Kennard disdain was very clear because you left him out of your conversations for the most part. But that's okay. I'm going to fix that on this episode.
We dropped his career high in there, but we have to give. We don't talk about Jake LaRavia, too much anymore.
That's true.
He was the off-season guy, right? And we kind of faded out on talking about him when the season started. So I had to give him a little love, man.
I'm sure Parker Fleming, our mutual friend, was a big fan.
He liked that, right?
For the podcast. But anyway, we'll talk about Luke, and we'll take a look ahead to meaningless NBA Cup games coming up, at least meaningless to me. But first, I want to remind everybody of something. 11 games into last season, Damichael. Do you remember what the record of the Memphis Grizzlies was at that time? Do you remember the exact? I'm definitely putting you on the spot. I want to stress, we did not talk about this before the show in our pre-show meeting. I am putting Damichael Cole on the spot. I just want you to guess. Yeah. I'll be impressed if you're close.
Was it 2-9?
They were going into this.
Because I know they started 0-6. They started 0-6 and then they won one.
At this exact point when they were 14 games in, right? Because we're 7-4 right now, right?
11 games. 11 games in.
Yeah. What did I say? Yeah, I meant 11.
14, but yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we're 11 games into the season. Right, we are currently 7-4. The Memphis Grizzlies are. Yep. What is your prediction of what their record was at this time last year?
2-9.
You were exactly right. See, I can put you on the spot because you're the
beat writer, man. Hey.
You are the beat writer for the Memphis Grizzlies for the commercial appeal. The Memphis Grizzlies, ironically, after playing the Los Angeles Lakers, right, similar opponent coming up, The Grizzlies were 2-9. The leading scorer in that game for Memphis was Santi Aldama, which, could certainly happen this coming week.
Yeah.
The leading rebounder, this will not happen in this coming game, was Bismack Biyombo. And I hope that it does not happen. John Conchar was the leader in assists with 6. So a little bit of possible, impossible, and hopefully doesn't occur. But the Grizzlies are 7-4 now, and that leads me, again, into a game against the Lakers coming up tomorrow night. I am curious as to how you're feeling about this team because X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, I'm part of the problem. I'm acknowledging that. It's a cesspool half the time of people just being mad and angry, and Taylor Jenkins's rotations are crap. And why is this
the
guy
Zach
playing?
thing is the big example. Like the Grizzlies are winning, and people were complaining about it. Well, I know that's not a real thing. I don't.
They are literally 5 games better right now than they were last year. And guess who leads the NBA in injuries again? The Memphis Grizzlies. And some of those missed games have come from Ja Morant. Without Ja Morant last year, it was a lot different experience. So how are you feeling? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Do you think the team's heading in the right direction going into a couple of big national? We did talk about that before the show. Back-to-back games on ESPN Wednesday and Friday night. How are you feeling about the team going into their first chance to really kind of be on the national stage this season?
Yeah, so we're saying how we feeling like how this season has gone up to this point, or
yes, sir.
Oh, this has been good. I mean, it's 2 things here. I think we can all look at this schedule and agree that when it came out, it was very clear that the Grizzlies needed to get out to a really strong start at the beginning of the season, and that has played out exactly how it should have, because this is not the strong part of your schedule. They have not seen Dallas yet. They have not seen Phoenix yet. They have not seen Boston yet. They have not seen Cleveland yet. You have not seen OKC yet. So this is the quote unquote, I guess you could say, weaker part of the Grizzlies schedule. And it's about to flip because you're about to go to LA where they're undefeated. You're about to go to Golden State where they're tied for the best record in the league. And then you go home, but guess what? You're going against the Denver Nuggets. And you play them twice. So these next 4 games will be really telling from that way. But what the Grizzlies have done is they're 7-4, which at the time of this recording puts them at 5th in the Western Conference, which is a strong spot to be in, considering that they're one of the most injury riddled teams in the league right now. I think the Pelicans may be the only team that I feel like is at this point in time right now that's probably more impacted by injuries. They're probably tit for tat now because the Pelicans have B.I. who's hanging around, Brandon Ingram, and the Grizzlies got Jaren Jackson Jr., and then they got Jose Alvarado, Trey Murphy, and the Grizzlies kind of have their key role players and all that. But I digress. All right, Joe, you can't say it this episode. I just let it out.
Use of I digress. Look at that. That's awesome.
Here's what I think. I think I like where they are. If you would have told me before the season, like I wrote about it yesterday too, like that game, these last 2 games, in a way, were reminiscent from a lineup perspective of what we saw last season. Jaren Jackson Jr. kind of having to carry the load in a way. They throw Scottie Pippen Jr. out there. You got Santi, mixed in and whatnot. And you got a rookie in Jalen Wells. But we didn't know Jalen Wells was going to be this good. We didn't know that, the defense was going to be like this. And the offense, the way they're playing, they're just obliterating teams right now. Like their last 5 wins, they won 5 of 6. All by 17 or more points. Like we're not getting even see this team in clutch minutes. Like we don't even know what that really looks like. So I think you got to be encouraged by what you've seen, but there is a nervousness to it because of what's about to come.
You have no idea what they're going to look like against better competition, but it is good to see what they are doing to teams that they're supposed to be doing this
exactly.
To. Right, that is important. That was not happening last year. Like if
they lost to Portland last year. Yeah,
lost to Portland last year. We talked about how the home record was part of what was inexcusable. The fact that during the Ja Morant suspension, they had Marcus Smart, they had Desmond Bane, they had Jaren Jackson Jr., and they were still struggling so mightily. That all was problematic. That's not happening this year. So I'm excited. I think that the fact that they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th in the Western Conference at the time of this recording, going into these next 2 games that are big, you're excited to see what these guys are able to do on the road? Can they rise to the occasion? This is what you do it for. You don't do it to beat up on the Wizards and the Trailblazers over a long weekend. You do this to play with the lights on bright on national television and say, we are the Memphis Grizzlies. This is what we do. I think that they are in a better position to be able to do that, even with the injuries. And I know we'll talk a little bit about some guys might be working their way back into the mix. Mm-hmm. Even with the injuries, you are in a position to be competitive that you were not competitive in a similar fashion last year. There was a cloud over the organization. It was doom and gloom. I don't get that vibe, even though they're having similar circumstances. That's reason for optimism. I'm excited. Damichael's excited, but a little bit nervous. At least you get to see it in person, right? Heading out to California, excited to get your takes and your coverage, going and seeing the team out live and in person Wednesday against the Lakers, and I believe Friday against the Warriors. So some good coverage coming from Damichael, of course, as always. Damichael always has great coverage. I don't want to make it sound like he doesn't. Make sure you're following him on X for that, at Damichael C. And if you want to get mad on X, you can follow me at Joe Mullinax. We're going to talk about Luke Kennard next, because I feel like people like to point out when I'm wrong. I just want to take a victory lap, if I'm being honest. Like, just stick with us. We'll get back to the – yeah, I'm gonna toot my horn here, beep, beep, coming up next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, this episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month, when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Check out Mint Mobile today. All right, Michael, Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard had a rough offensive game against the Portland Trailblazers. Lots of guys didn't have rough offensive games, at least in terms of scoring.
Yeah, shooting.
Right? We had 7 players, if I do recall, 12 points or more against the Portland Trailblazers, which is pretty phenomenal when you think about it. Luke Kennard was not one of them, which makes it even more impressive. But what Luke Kennard did do was dish out 11 assists. 11. I believe you said on yesterday's show, a career high for Luke Kennard. And the reason that I want to take a bit of a victory lap is I have said time and again a couple of hot takes about Luke Kennard. One, that I think he's a top 10 3-point shooter in the history of the NBA. That is admittedly a hot take, but I think the numbers back it up and support it. I also think that Luke Kennard, if given the opportunity, can be a solid secondary facilitator of offense. He showed that against the Portland Trailblazers. And you alluded to earlier in the show, there's probably an episode coming up here soon where you and I kind of sit down, talk about rotations, who's out, who's in. I think that Luke Kennard has to be in. And one of the reasons Luke Kennard has to be in is his offensive versatility. I'm not sure that the combination of 3-point shooting and offensive creation for others in particular, but a little bit for himself, I don't think many other players can replicate it at the same volume that Luke Kennard can. So unless you're trading Luke Kennard, which starting December 15th, we can have that conversation too, I think the Kennard has to be one of your guys in the rotation if and when the team is ever fully healthy. Maybe it's just time that we accept them, Michael, that they're never going to be fully healthy, and it's important to keep these guys around for when they're needed. But if the team ever does get to full strength, I still think Luke Kennard is one of their top 10 best.
That game was a big one for Luke, because the thing about Luke Kennard is he's a shooter. He's a shooter. That's what we talk about all the time with him. But the questions that I've had for him Santi, those type of guys, even Jake LaRavia, who's really answered the bell, and from this perspective, so far early in the season, is what happens when you're not making threes? Because they all have those days. That's what separates the Desmond Bains, right? Desmond Bain can go 0 for 7 from 3-point range and still score, 18 points and still have 5 assists, 6, 7 assists, grab a couple boards, and still be a very impactful player. Same thing with Jaren. Jaren can go 1 of 7 on threes and still have 20 and 4 blocks, whatever the case may be. Ja, same thing. But not to those guys' level, but how can you stay on the floor when the shot isn't falling? Jake LaRavia has mastered that. Jake LaRavia had a game this year where he shot 1 of 10, but was still finding ways via his defense and all those things to be on the floor. He had, before this last game, he had a streak, 3 consecutive games with at least 5 boards and 5 assists. Santi Aldama just had 16, 6, and 6. This was a big game for Luke Kennard because before that game, I know, Joe, you talk about the playmaking and things like that. And I've seen it in doses. You pointed out the Detroit Pistons when he was there. He had a run. And, that is all true. But it's like, I remember last season, a lot of the injuries were happening, and he was one of the players who missed a lot of time. But there was a point where he was playing, and a lot of guys were out, and he was doing a lot of more on the ball stuff and things like that. But I guess because of the talent around him, it just didn't pop as much to me. Whereas now, even with all these injuries and with the new system, you saw him kind of finding a lot of guys, via those cuts and things like that is being implemented and playing with the pace that this new system is kind of, really bringing out of these guys. It fits his role as a secondary facilitator. And it kind of brings that even more, out of his game. So that's a big development because that's always been my question. And quite frankly, if you go back to that playoff series against the Lakers before he got hurt, he was a positive on the floor overall, but it didn't feel that way if you were watching it simply because they took the shot away from him. The Lakers weren't letting him shoot the ball, but the Lakers, the gravity and all that allowed for other guys to be freed up. But I still wanted to see, okay, can he rebound some? Or can he, can he pull guys away from the basket and, create assists and things like that? I wasn't seeing enough for that, but I'm with you. I think right now he's definitely one of the 10. He's playing decent basketball. And guess what? We all know that he's that 1 of 5 from 3-point range is not going to be the norm, anything close to the norm with Luke Kennard. But yeah, seeing him pass the ball like that, really impressive. You got a physical Lakers team that, I think even Parker pointed this out when he asked Luke about it. Historically, he struggles against because of the physicality that those guards tend to play with. Now, Dennis Schroeder was kind of the main guy in charge of guarding him, but even in the game earlier this season against the Lakers, Luke Kennard really didn't pop in terms of battling that physicality or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, I still want to see a little bit more. Like I think you're a little bit higher on the pool to me, but I've always talked about what his shooting brings to this team, but you're starting to see more shooters be developed, whether it's Jake LaRavia shooting 38% from 3-point range right now, whether it's Jalen Wells, who to me, the shot is smooth. I don't know exactly what he's shooting right now, but when he shoots the basketball, I feel like he has a really good chance of going in when he shoots it. So you're developing these other shooters, which means Luke Kennard's got to bring, he's got to add something to his game because guys are starting to shoot the basketball a little bit better around him.
It's a bit of a macro view of the roster, right? Because obviously we're sitting here in November. Nobody really wants to talk about trade deadlines and nobody really wants to talk about long-term planning. But if you look at the core of this team and you look at the guys whose contracts are coming up in a variety of ways, Jake LaRavia did not get his option picked up.
Did not get the option picked up.
So that means he is going to be a restricted free agent, I believe.
No,
unrestricted.
I believe that makes him unrestricted.
Unrestricted.
He would have been restricted if, like Santi, for example.
Right.
Santi Aldama is the other player who didn't get an extension. Mm-hmm. So Santi will be a restricted free agent at the end of the season. But yeah, Jake LaRavia will be unrestricted.
Right. So they have a decision to make on Jake LaRavia. They obviously Luke Kennard. It was a decision that was a 1-year deal that they signed with him. So I think that when we start looking at roster consolidation, because again, we'll have an episode down the road, who are our 10 guys? for me, Luke Kennard is one of those 10 guys. But if you want to look at this roster and say, well, who's going to be here next year?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Who can you actually say, okay, this is a core around Ja, Jaren, and Bane?
Yeah.
Kennard's probably not in that conversation. And you want him to play right now so that he builds up trade value, so that he gets somewhere maybe alongside a LaRavia, and you're trying to upgrade the wing position. There's ways to try to do that within the prospects of what the Grizzlies are building on their roster. I'm curious to see how all that's going to shake out. But in the short term, I'm definitely playing Luke Kennard. I think that he has the three-point stroke. I think he has the basketball IQ. That's important. Don't underestimate that in terms of how he's able to read the schemes of the offense, find those cutters. I find it hard to believe that those cutters just magically appeared for Luke Kennard. I think he's finding the lanes and the timing of the offense in a way that these younger players aren't necessarily able to do, right?
And
at least not at this point.
It's the fact that he is a shooter, so when he gets the basketball, eyes go to him. A lot of those guys are not very good one-on-one players and things like that, so defenses aren't loading up to stop them like they would a Ja or Dez or whatever the case may be. But in the case of Luke Kennard, defenses are saying, that's the shooter. And as they're saying that, Jalen Wells is slowly sneaking up behind him, and Jake LaRavia is just cutting to the basket. Santi's going right behind him, and Luke's like, come on over here. And he just throws the ball right behind him. And this system really bodes well for his strengths in that area.
And eventually they're going to have to start saying there's the shooter with Jalen Wells, too. The scouting reports just haven't caught up just yet.
It's coming.
I think it's coming. Unfortunately, what else is coming is the NBA Cup. And I know that Damichael's excited about the NBA Cup. I am not as excited about the NBA Cup that gets underway today. We'll have a conversation where I reveal my terrible old man takes coming up next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle all the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when a hunch hits you, like the Washington Commanders trying to get revenge after a tough loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, Thursday Night Football against the Philadelphia Eagles, you think that Daniels and his crew are going to take out Philly. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Damichael, your NBA Cup, the Emirates NBA Cup, I believe it's called, something like that.
New name, Emirates NBA.
Yeah, new improved name after 1 year of existence. The NBA Cup.
It's the money talking, man. People like it, Joe. Unlike you, people like it, and the money is starting to flow.
Well, here's where it's going to start. Okay, back in my day, you would sit down and you would just watch basketball. You don't need flashy courts that have nothing to do with the winning and the losing of the game. You don't need more money. The last thing these dudes need is more money. You know how much the United States paid France for the Louisiana Purchase, Damichael? Do you know how much?
Going way back.
$15 million for doubling the size of the United States. That is worth approximately $414 million today. We bought half of the territory in this country at that time for the same amount of money that Jason Tatum makes almost in the NBA.
This must be a topic in the classroom right now.
He needs more money? He needs more money right now, Damichael Cole? That's what this guy needs? Well, how about the non-guaranteed contract?
Yeah. What about the two-way guys?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I want people, make basketball a place where you can just sit down and, hey, it's a regular season game in November, but that's going to matter in February and March and April. Why do you need big flashy signs? It's all a sign of our society right now, Damichael Cole. I need the flashy thing. I need, what, is Bad Bunny going to come out and perform at halftime for no good reason? They're just going to throw money at Bad Bunny. I love Bad Bunny, but do we need Bad Bunny?
Bad Bunny did come to LA. Did come to LA for a Grizzlies Lakers game.
Do we need Bad Bunny for a November basketball game? No, it's a basketball game. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to watch the schemes, offense, defense. I'm looking forward to watching that on Wednesday night. Why do we need, is Pitbull going to come back? I feel like they're hyping up something that doesn't need to be hyped. It's just basketball. Just watch basketball. Why are you excited about this? I know that you like it. Is it as simple as I am old and I don't understand? Or should I look at it through the Damichael lens? Because I don't get what the NBA is trying to do. Maybe it's not made for me, but I don't get it.
Yeah, it's that simple, Joe. It's that simple in this case because, and I will admittedly say that I wasn't thrilled about the idea when it first came up, and I'm like, are they going to just drop this in the midst of an NBA season? But since you want to talk about back in your day, offenses used to have 85 possessions a game.
Oh God!
And they throw the ball into the post.
That's basketball.
And you know what I looked at? The other day in 2005 and 6, teams were averaging 26, 27 3-point attempts. That is gross.
That
beautiful. Is nasty.
That's basketball right there.
The Celtics are averaging over 50 3-point attempts.
That's terrible.
It's double that. You got, I think last I checked, 6 teams are averaging over 40 attempts. Teams just started averaging over 40 3-pointers.
I'm not even necessarily complaining about 3-point shots. I'm complaining about fancy courts in a made-up in-season tournament that they already changed the name of the tournament.
All of this ties into the evolution of the game. That's what I'm getting to. This is part of the evolution of modern basketball where you know this, Joe. We're in an era of instant gratification. Social media
100%.
And everything has done that to us. 82-game regular season is just not appeasing to the average viewer anymore. People don't care as much about November, and they'll watch Christmas games, and then January will come and they'll just, okay. So you add this new little flavor. The players, I think, after they started to understand it a little bit more, started to be a little bit more receptive to it. And I think as the years go on, players will get more and more receptive to it. What I have learned is, here's the easy part. The European players that I've talked to about this love it because they're familiar with this kind of style in European soccer. Like Santi, for example, we've talked about this. He's probably the Grizzlies player who was the least confused about everything in-season tournament related last season. I like it now because it adds that pop. You know, the court and stuff, that's all extra. You know, I don't really care too much for that part of it. But again, it is a separator. That is a way for you to say, hey, these are in-season tournament games. Let's change the courts up. Let's do this with the uniforms. Let's do that. You wear this, you wear that. You got the Emirates sign that's going to be out there on the courts. I like it. I like it because it brings that extra competitiveness out. And then you got the factor of the point differential. I love that. I don't know. It's just I love narratives too, Joe. And this creates narratives because now, as you saw late, like when people started to figure the in-season tournament out last season, in the last group games, you saw teams shooting 3-pointers up 30 with a minute to go, trying to get that point differential up. And I think there were certain teams like, oh, they have to win by 28 points in order to make it to the knockout stage and stuff like that. I like that. Like, it adds another element. Like, you can't just beat this team. You got to beat the crap out of them to get there. So I like it. Look, and it's not long, Joe. Like, calm down. It's 4 games, and then you play a couple knockout stage games if you make it that far. So it's like 6 regular season games. It's not a big deal. It just adds a little pop to what is really the dry part of the season. This isn't necessarily a dry part of the season for Grizzlies people as much as other, because you're seeing all these. I mean, we just haven't seen the Grizzlies healthy, but there are other teams, like Boston and other teams, like they don't really care about this part of the season as much.
My biggest thing, and the biggest reason that I don't care for it, is it's very clearly an attempt by them to try to offset having to compete with football, right? Like that's very clearly why, at least to me. I think that they, again, just play the games. Like, just play the basketball games. Just go out there and roll the ball out. These are the best athletes on the planet. Like, I'm a football guy, but I'm happy to acknowledge that basketball players are the best athletes, in my opinion, in the world. Like, just let them play. Like, why can't we tune in and just appreciate the athleticism and the talent And I don't need all the flashiness. You brought up the
instant the numbers thing. Aren't great at this point of the season.
No, and I think there's reasons for that. Like, you chuck the ball from beyond the arc 50 plus times a game. Like, I would rather watch and again, this is a bit of an ironic comp. Like, the Warriors do a lot of backdoor cuts, right? The Warriors do a lot of movement off the ball. It's not just Steph Curry chucking threes. Yeah. I would rather watch that kind of basketball. Like, I like the big man back to the basket. Like, if Zach Edey wanted to do that all the time, sign me up, because that's what I played. I was the big man, back before everybody else grew.
Long gone, buddy.
Oh, no, you're exactly right. I would rather watch the motion offenses, like the old school Princeton offense. I'm really dating myself now. But the old school Princeton offense where you're cutting and slashing all the time, that's not that much different from what the Grizzlies are doing. There's a little bit, more intricacy to it. There's a back screen here.
You put kids to sleep with that today. These YouTube watching kids, they're not trying to watch guys and that running circles for 15 seconds on the shot clock.
And that is exactly why I think you're exactly right the way you described it. It is meant to try to attract the mindset of the modern NBA fan, which is not me, right? It just isn't. It's not made for me. It's not designed for me. The NFL Super Bowl show is designed for me, right? Like when 50 Cent and Eminem and Usher come trotting out, I go back to my high school gym and homecoming dance when came on with Little John. Yeah. Right. Like that's for me. I'm at that stage. The NBA is trying to skew more young. I get it. You're exactly right about the YouTube thing. That drives me nuts with my students every day. Like, they're just sitting there watching people play video games on YouTube. Like, you can play the video game. Like, you go play the video game. I don't know. I want to watch this guy do it. He's funny. He's a streamer. You go play the game. You own it. But
guys get paid a lot of money for that.
Yeah. They sure do. Gosh, maybe we should start a Locked On game YouTube gaming or something. I don't know. I'm so old. I learned that more and more every day. My hairline isn't the only evidence. Damichael's a fan of the NBA Cup. Not so much. Let us know. I have a feeling you're going to agree with Damichael, which is fine.
So you're telling me right now, we get this out of the way. So if the Grizzlies were somehow to go 4-0 in group play,
I could care less.
You like, if they're 3-0 and another team in the group is 3-0 and they're both playing to advance to the knockout stage, you'll just regular season game it.
I could care less.
No, that game's gonna have some extra pop. Taylor Jenkins gonna play guys
that you
longer.
Outlined where they have to score 28 points. And first off, I don't agree that Taylor Jenkins is going to play guys longer. I disagree completely. Yeah, Taylor Jenkins better than I do, and I am fairly confident in saying he too could care less about the NBA Cup. Because when the Grizzlies zig, the rest of the league zags, right? So
I'm going to ask him this tomorrow. We're going to get an answer on this.
You should. Ask him. Yeah, tag me in the response, please. And I look forward to hearing how he could give a damn less about the NBA Cup. And then Taylor Jenkins and I, both bald, both bearded white guys, we can, take another step forward in our camaraderie. Let Damichael and I know what you're thinking about the NBA Cup. And, I guess I'm looking forward to previewing the basketball game. That I'm all about. Like, let's talk Grizzlies Lakers. That has enough pop for me. I don't need a shiny Lakers court that content creator JJ Redick, who's the head coach of the Lakers now, gets to coach on. Give me a basketball game. And I also know that you're going to be there in person, partner. Exciting times. You get to watch the NBA Cup live and in color, up front and personal. Lots of things to talk about heading into our Wednesday edition of the show.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Like I said, I think the team will be practicing out in LA, and I'm gonna try to get out there for that practice. So hopefully I make it in time. When my flight lands, hopefully I get there in time for practice, and we'll learn more. I'm sure we're gonna talk to him more about the Ja Morant thing, right? I think people want to know more about what this next few weeks will look like for him. But other than that, then there's some other guys, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart's really close to being back, but, Desmond Bane isn't far and Vince Williams isn't far either. So we'll get updates there, but obviously a very crucial part of the schedule for this Grizzlies team right here.
Excited that you get to go out there and cover it up close and personal, and I'm excited to continue to talk about it the rest of this week here on Locked On Grizzlies. Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Check us out. Become an everydayer. Make us a part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption. Remember to subscribe to the Locked On Grizzlies daily newsletter. We have a newsletter now, a one-stop shop for team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Grizzlies newsletter. For Damichael, I'm Joe. Stay locked in. Grizzlies, Lakers tomorrow night. Exciting times. Make sure you're with us for the Wednesday edition of the show. Until then, have a good one. Stay safe. We'll catch you next time here on Locked On Grizzlies.